It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our first Cultivating a Keynote speaker. Anthony Marshall is a fellow TAC member. Anthony teaches high school at Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is a proud graduate of Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and also Howard University. Please join me in welcoming Anthony.
If I can help my colleagues as I pass along, if I can cheer a student with the words of a song, if I can help a parent as they're growing their child strong, then my teaching shall not be in vain. Then my teaching shall not be in vain. Then my teaching shall not be in vain. If I can help a student as they pass along, then my teaching shall not be in vain. When I was young, I often dreamed I was teaching school. I vividly recall passing out pencils to my students, standing in front of the blackboard. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a part of the blackboard and eraser days. Remember those? Although I do not know what subject I was teaching in those dreams, little did I realize that more than 40 years later, those dreams would become reality. As an avid reader and having what many considered, the gift of gab, I decided to pursue a career in law rather than following my dream of being a teacher. As an attorney, I was intrigued by the constant questions that arose as I interpreted the law. Studying and applying legal principles propelled my inquisitive nature and gave me the desire to share that knowledge with young people I encountered as I worked as a volunteer in the boys' clubs of Washington, D.C. I was energized and motivated by the unquenchable thirst for knowledge exhibited by these young men I mentored and tutored. As I look back, I realized these were the formative years of my teaching profession. In light of my zeal for the profession, I decided to take the secondary history exam and earn my license to teach. Sure, I maintained my license to teach in the state of Oklahoma, but yet I ignored my true calling and remained a practicing attorney. After practicing law in the office of the General Counsel for the District of Columbia, I was diagnosed terminally ill by doctors. One night, as I lay in my hospital bed, the doctors told my mother she could go back to Oklahoma and they would ship my body home. At that very moment, a small voice told me that my sickness was not unto death, but that there was a purpose in my life. It's kind of funny, maybe even strange to think about it, but my life was actually saved that day. For ladies and gentlemen, 10½ years later, I stand before you proclaiming that I have fulfilled that dream as a little boy of being a teacher. Never in more than 20 years as an attorney has my life been as gratifying as those years I spent teaching. I truly have found my voice. So today, I want to encourage each of you to discover that inner voice, because that voice inside you is actually the one thing you will need if we're going to truly create institutional change in education. In finding that voice, you will discover that you can make a difference in the lives of young colleagues and students as well. So this afternoon, I want to share a few thoughts from my inner voice, what it has been telling me for the last 10 years, and tell you what I did with it. First of all, remember, flexibility is your best friend. The more you expand your knowledge and options, the more information and perspectives you can provide to your students. When I started teaching, my first goal was to gain certification in several disciplines within the social studies department. As a result, I am now certified to teach Oklahoma history, world history, government, U.S. history, economics, geography, business law, computers and business, and even information processing. In addition, I've attended AP conferences. I've also earned my certification to teach in the IB Baccalaureate program. Having these extra tools in my toolbox allows me greater flexibility in teaching that I wouldn't have otherwise. For example, IB training has given me the opportunity to enhance student learning. Many of the thought processes used in the IB courses are transferable to other classroom settings. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a holistic, flexible approach to teaching regardless of the subject matter. Second, I've learned that sacrifice produces great rewards. I see myself not in my own personal achievement, but in the achievement of my students. I want to mold a generation greater than mine. I was the class sponsor for the Booker T. Washington class of 2009. In that class, we had, for the first time, 100% graduation rate. I sacrificed to help make the average AP U.S. history score for students at Booker T. Washington increase. Most importantly, I've increased the number of African American students who are now enrolled in AP classes at Booker T. Washington High School. I think this outcome is a direct result of my active involvement with students both inside and outside the classroom. Sacrifice. Yes, I'm willing to sacrifice my leisure time to work with students. Working with students outside the classroom, in other words, you know that time that we spend with the kids that we don't get paid for, is perhaps my most rewarding contribution to the field. Early in my career, I was inspired to organize Men of Power. This outstanding group of young men are dedicated to eradicating the negative stereotypes often associated with the African American male student through academic achievement, spiritual growth, and community involvement. Helping these young men realize they must take responsibility for their actions if they are to succeed is essential to my teaching philosophy. This program has received local, national, and as well as state acclaim for the innovative programs that we've initiated. And the graduates of Men of Power have gone on to do great things and impact others in their lives. These young men are now heads of student government organizations in colleges. They've interned with Fortune 500 companies throughout the nation. But most importantly, they are now making a positive impact on other students. One of these young men, Mr. Kevin Matthews, was a charter member of Men of Power. Kevin has gone on to do great things in education. Kevin graduated from Hampton University, and he went on to teach in the Dallas Independent School District. While in the Dallas Independent School District, Kevin's students, 95% of which were ELL students, scored an average of 5 percentage points higher than the district average on the Math 7 State of Texas Assessment in Readiness. Kevin has also launched his own educational organization specializing in financial literacy and empowerment of young people. Another young man, Mr. Danny Williams, he was admitted to Booker T. Washington High School with only a 2.49 grade point average. Recognizing that all students are capable of learning, I mentored Danny through the Men of Power program. Upon graduation, Danny was a member of the National Honor Society and had received scholarship opportunities from several prestigious institutions throughout our country. Right now, Danny is studying petroleum engineering at the University of Tulsa. I received an email from Danny just last week. In that email, Danny shared with me that now, as an intern, he will be earning $4,500 a month this summer. I was like, wait a minute, that's more than I make. But more importantly, at the end of the email, Danny said to me, Dr. Marshall, thank you for believing in me when no one else did. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why we do what we do, sacrifice. I have a quote posted in my classroom. It simply says, reward comes before work, only in the dictionary. The strategic placement of these words at the back of my room opposite my teaching podium, however, is a constant reminder to me as well. If I am going to continue as a great teacher, I too must put in some work. I must make some sacrifices. And the impact I've made on students doing this incredible work has been worth each and every sacrifice. Finally, survive, transform, and rebuild. When you're a teacher, sometimes things will fall apart. And those struggles require not only resilience, but a true willingness to rebuild. I was faced early on in my career with the challenge of teaching AP US history and helping to build the diversity within our student enrollment in the AP courses. This actually was a very frightening challenge to me because I'm now faced with the prospect that many students of color fear AP and IB courses. Many of them believe that AP and IB are for white kids. And you all have to agree, you've heard that before. But as a man of color, I was particularly determined that these students would master the task and excel. So as I was faced with building confidence in these young people in an environment that honestly I felt many of them thought that they could not succeed, I had to step back, take a deep breath, look at my purpose, look at my dream. And I thought about all the things that had held me back as a teacher and how it took a death sentence that night to pursue my life's goal. I knew these students needed these classes. Ladies and gentlemen, keeping that as the center of my focus, I overcame my personal feelings. And now, 55% of my students scored 3 or higher on the AP History exam. And more importantly, thank you. And more importantly, 40% of them are students of color. So, Anthony, what have you learned from that lesson? Well, I'm glad you asked. Ladies and gentlemen, when we put students first, everything else will fall in place. So I encourage you, as we convene this weekend amidst the grandeur of this beautiful city, let's do as this city and the residents did after the devastating tragedy of Hurricane Katrina. Let's recognize our resilience. Let's commit ourselves to elevating above the storm and rebuild things when they fall apart. I admonish you, if you recognize that voice that speaks deep within, listen to it. It'll take you further than you can ever imagine. You will have changed a child's life, and then you'll realize that your teaching is not in vain. Thank you.